Welcome back. I'm Connie Sokol, your host, and it is such a treat today to talk about this avenue of our lives, which is education, and what happens when we have difficulties in being able to learn and express ourselves. And it's on the daily. And I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of this in not just children, but teenagers and even adults. And this affects our lives on the daily because it affects every avenue, whether we're getting a job, whether we're trying to keep a job, whether we're trying to get education, more education, whether we're just trying to communicate with people in our community. This is a huge piece, and either it's affecting us or it's affecting someone we love or someone we know. So it's going to affect us in some way. And that's why we're talking about this today, because this gal that I'm interviewing today knows her stuff. And man, has she got power tools to be able to help. Welcome, Disciple Thought Leader, Amanda Powell. Hi, Amanda. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much. It is an honor and a privilege.
It's so great. I really wish you all could sit in a classroom when she does trainings. You would be knocked off your chair because this woman knows how to put educational stuff into hands-on, interactive, really make you feel it right down to your soul. So let's kind of take people back for a second of where this all began, because you are super passionate about this whole subject. I mean, super passionate. So take us back to how you even got started in this, how this even began for you to this path, this journey to helping others deal with this.
So my journey started out with my two twin boys. And as a young mom, I'm watching them. And I start noticing things are different with these two than they were with my other two. And I started noticing little things like, as they would be talking to me, they would say, "Oh, Mom, look how cute this hopper grasser is." And I'm like, "Hopper grasser? You mean grasshopper?" And just these little things, or I noticed that it took them forever to learn how to tie their shoes. Or after we had just eaten, they would lick their plate, right? Because they have good table manners like that. They would lick their plate and they would say, "Oh, Mom, this is so good. I love you so much. You should make it more." And I'm like, that's cute at 3, but it's not going to be cute at 23. And so it led me on this path of something just isn't right. Like I just feel it in my gut, in my mom gut, right? I just know something's not right. So it led me on this journey to where I started getting them assessed, right? Do they need some speech therapy? And yep, they need some speech therapy. And then that led into, they would bring their books home in kindergarten. And I just noticed that they're just not reading at the rate that my other two were reading. And I would try really hard not to compare them. And yet at the same time, I was like, this just isn't this, like, it's just different. Something's not right. So I would notice they would know a chunk of a word when it was at the beginning, but they didn't know it in the middle and they didn't know it at the end. Or they would know the word on this page, but wouldn't know it throughout the rest of the story. And their spelling was really inconsistent. And it just led to me to continue to dig and continue to dig. And it led to a licensed psychologist who I reached out to and said, "Hey, I think there's something going on." And this licensed psychologist said, "I think it's dyslexia." And so through him, he led me to a dyslexic specialist, and they did all of the assessments and they said, yeah, 100%. And one of them is more severe than the other, which is very common. And then they said this, which is so huge to me, Connie, so huge. They said, if one or more than one of your children have dyslexia, it came from either you or your husband. So which one of you have it? Because it runs that closely in families. And I'm looking at them going, well, it's not me, right? I'm in college to be a special education teacher. Obviously, it's not me. And my husband, gosh, I think he's pretty smart. He's pretty bright. It can't be him. He doesn't talk about reading things backwards and, all of these myths that we think dyslexia is. So I go through the myth, right? Like, well, he doesn't do this and he doesn't do this and he doesn't do this. And they said, you know what? We're doing this whole data collection and your family can be part of our collection. And we'll assess you guys for free, your whole family. We'll assess your whole family. We want to see where it's coming from. So I agreed to it and I go in and they start assessing me. And imagine my shock when that assessor comes out and says, "Okay, tell us what you are doing, because there is no way you can be on the dean's list at college and have the severity of dyslexia that you have. How are you functioning?" And for the first time, I started going, well, doesn't everybody struggle like this? And they said no. And all of a sudden I was able to really go back and relate with my boys and really see where, yeah, I did have struggles with decoding, and I still have struggle with writing and with that spelling piece. And so their journey became my journey. And then my journey became embedded with so many others as I would meet people and they would just say, oh, help my child. Please tell me, give me some skills. What can I do? And it just became this beautiful awareness. And now that I'm aware and I've been able to help my boys, and they have done amazing things in their life, and being able to see how it's helped me and how my greatest weakness has become my greatest strength has just been amazing.
That is incredible. And I'm sure the listeners are feeling the same way. I am loving this mother awareness, a mother lens where, like you said, something's not right. And then you followed it up and then you found ways to help. And then it actually helped your whole family. That is incredible. And I am imagining that's what's led you to all of your further education. And before I go further, let me just give you the full on bio. She's an education specialist now with a mild moderate degree and administrative credentials with added authorizations in autism, English as a second language, and she's certified in dyslexia. I mean, yeah, most of us on the daily without dyslexia would be like, that makes my head hurt, right? But you've been able to do all that. And now your whole goal is to raise that awareness in educators and in teachers and in individuals of, hey, this is a thing and you don't have to struggle so much and it doesn't have to be so hard. And helping those in the education system to be aware of those kids coming through instead of thinking they're just being lazy or they're being belligerent, seeing that there's a problem, a deeper problem. So take us through now. You've been working in the education system. What do you see mostly with these kids? Because that's got to affect their ability to stay in school. It's got to affect so many aspects. How are you seeing this impact the kids?
Yeah, one thing when I'm speaking to educators, their first thing is like, oh, we can't say the D word. Like we can't say dyslexia. And they say that all the time. Like we can't say that. That's like a bad word in education. And I just pull the data, right? Because data shows that 30% of our students are dropping out. That's 3 out of 10 students. 3 out of 10 of our students are failing to finish high school with a diploma. That's huge. That affects us in big ways. And if we take it even further, right? If we take it even further, that is 1.3 million students lost from 9th to 12th grade.
And that lack of further education is just going to impact their income. It's going to impact their poverty level. It's going to impact their ability to do things like vote or things like that, or even be involved in the process in their community. Oh my goodness. So what do you see as the root of that reason?
Yeah. So if we jump down, because that's the other thing too, right? Dyslexia the word has been used and abused and misused. And we're to the point where people are like, what is it? Right? What is it? And there's so many myths around it. And so the first step is debunking those myths, realizing what it is not. And it's not seeing letters or words backwards. It's not words bouncing all over a page. That's not dyslexia. What dyslexia is it's brain-based. It's a brain-based disability, and it affects your ability to decode, which is our reading, encode, which is our spelling, and our writing. And it happens on a continuum, right? So what may be severe to me may be very mild to somebody else, which makes it really hard to identify.
Wow. So when you go in and you are teaching parents and educators to look for those markers and those sort of symptoms, so to speak, what do you help them look for?
Yeah. So the first thing that I help them do is debunk those myths. Once they debunk those myths, there are amazing resources out there that really can walk you through. If I suspect my child has dyslexia, here is a questionnaire, and it's going to ask you to go all the way back. Did they meet those milestones with speech? Did they meet those early on? How was their reading? Did they have a hard time learning the alphabet or even the letters in their names? I remember my boys, they went to preschool knowing how to write their name. And by the time we hit the month of December, their papers were coming home with only a couple letters in their name, like BRA, or BRAY. And I was like, this is weird. And so I went to the teacher and I said, I noticed that their they're not writing their names anymore. And she said, well, Amanda, they're young. They're the youngest in the class, and they're boys. And recess comes right after writing. And so they just are hurrying. It's nothing to worry about. So I go with that. It's nothing to worry about. Well, come February, now they only have a B on their paper, and both of them only have a B on their paper. So I bring them home and I'm like, no, I got to see what they can do. So I said, hey, boys, we're going to go for a 4-wheeler ride. But first, I want you to write your name. Just write your name on this paper for me. And I hand them this piece of paper. And one of them starts writing, B-R-A, and the other one writes a B. And then they put their hand in their head. And then they look at me. And Braxton looks up at me and he goes, Mom, I don't know what comes next. I don't remember what comes next in my name, right? These are all red flags. These are things that should be making you go, okay, that's something that's different.
That's significant.
It's
Yes.
very significant. Yes. Not being able to sequence things, I breaking things down. Like I could say to my older two, I need you to go to your room and I need you to make your bed. And then I need you to pick up all your toys. And then I need you to vacuum your floor. If I gave that to my two with dyslexia, they were like, wait, what?
You lost me at go to your room.
The sequencing was so difficult. And even me, somebody tells me directions and it's terrible, right? Me and my husband, I'm not even kidding you, on our honeymoon, he's like, hey, Amanda, you know how to read a map, right? And I'm like, yes. And this was way before Google Maps, right?
Right.
So I've got the atlas and I'm like, I got this. And he says, where's my exit? And I'm looking and I look up at him and I look back down the map and I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, well, what road do I take? And I said, the blue one. And it's this far away, right? And he's like, pulls over. And I mean, it's a good thing there wasn't a courthouse along the way, because he pulls over and he's like, you don't know how to read a map? And I'm like, well, I thought I did. I mean, I know how to read a map when it says Sally lives at block B and she needs to go to the store on block A. Like I can get there, right? Directions. And still to this day, somebody will say, am I turning left and right? And I'm like, yeah, sounds good to me. Like, I don't know my left and my right. Yeah.
So great. And you know what? There's so many people out there who are dealing with that and not realizing, oh, this is what it is. And you can actually do something about it. So take us through, this is so great. You work with educators and you do a powerful, powerful training. The 1 day, 3 day, you do these trainings that put these people in a whole different level of being able to assess and help those that are in their reach as these educators to help the students and even the parents that they're working with. So tell us what's one thing that you have helped them to learn how to do that has really been powerful and life shifting for them in dealing with this effectively?
Yeah. So within my trainings, the first thing that they do is they come in and I put them under a simulation, and they all have to struggle with dyslexia for 4 hours. And teachers, it's just eye-opening for them. I've had many teachers say to me, man, I thought I had empathy before, but that was hard. I've had teachers completely stand up, right? Throw their pencil and say, I'm out, I'm done. And I have to look at them and say, man, you've had dyslexia for 5 minutes, and you're done, And so putting them in the shoes of that struggling student. And then the next thing that I do is really help them understand what dyslexia is and what it is not. Because if you know what it is, now you're able to identify it, you're able to provide an intervention, right? If we just know what something is, but we're not providing that intervention, what are we really doing? And we have to stop failing our students. We cannot be okay with the fact that 32 million adults cannot read.
Wow.
We can't be okay with that anymore. It is time for us to really change the way that we're looking at what we're doing in our classrooms.
Amazing. And that's what you're doing. And I love that as these teachers feel what it's like, they can start realizing why their kids feel so frustrated. And even moms listening can start realizing we got to get 20 minutes of reading done, Bobby, right? And he's struggling and we're getting frustrated maybe or whatever, not realizing that this is exhausting and so frustrating to them because they really cannot do it without having extra help.
Yeah. And Connie, the amazing thing that I like to tell everybody is those of us with dyslexia have average to high average IQs.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's where it's at. It's that unexpected, like, man, this student should be able to achieve at this level, but yet their reading is here. And what is going on? And reading really is, our brains are hardwired for that language, that spoken language piece. But when it comes to written language, that is something that has to be learned and taught. And that's where dyslexia comes in.
Isn't that crazy amazing? And that's what will give them that upper leg in being able to read the written word. And that's documents, that's diplomas, that's everything. That's interview questions, that's bank statements, that's everything, helping them to be able to learn that language. I absolutely love this. If there is a mom that's listening and she's thinking, I think one of my kids might have this, or maybe my husband has, or I have it. What would be the next best step? Now, you've talked about getting an assessment and being able to maybe find places that can be a resource to that. I would imagine school districts would have some kind of those resources. But first, what I'm hearing from you is get assessed and then learn some of these intervention tools. And then what? What can they do on the daily?
Yeah. So first of all, recognize your kid's strengths, because there is a child in there, right? And they have so much to give. They have so much to give to your family, to their classroom, to the world. And recognizing what that is and bringing that out in them. And so really focusing on their strengths and then supporting those weaknesses. So one thing I really like to talk about is the fact that there are 3 types of reading. And a lot of people think there's only one, right? They think, oh, no, there's only one. But there's 3. If you were to walk into a library and you were to see a student sitting there and they had a book and you could easily tell it was Braille and they were reading with their fingers, would you say they were reading, Connie? Are they reading?
Yeah.
Why are they reading?
Because they're learning something with their fingers. It's translating to written. I mean, the written is translating to thought.
Yes. And reading is just getting anything written into our brain. So that's the first type, is that finger reading, right? Well, the second type we're all really, really used to, and that's our eye reading. That is when we can take it and we can translate it and we're reading with our eyes. The third type is ear reading, which those of us with dyslexia are really good at our listening comprehension. It is such a huge strength for us. So if your child is really good at listening comprehension, give them every book that they want to read, high, low, whatever it is, give them their interest and give it to them in an audio format. And then support that eye reading at their level.
Oh, that's beautiful. So they can listen to Harry Potter and not struggle through that. That's beautiful. Wow, that's beautiful. And that's incentive. I remember reading about a child who struggled with reading, and he wanted to, back in the day, he wanted to read the book Jaws and wanted to read it so bad that was the incentive for him to actually learn these interventions. So it sounds like play to their strength and then encourage them with the weak areas with things that would be interesting or helpful interventions, and a spoonful of sugar at a time, right? Not just throwing it down their throats or whatever, but being able to do it, like you said, at level.
Yes, absolutely.
That is amazing. How are your boys doing now?
Oh my word, so good. They graduated in the wake of 2020. So yeah, so that was crazy. And they are both serving missions right now for the church that I'm a member of, out serving missions and doing really well and not afraid to read. They still read slower than, what you would expect, but they read and they do really well.
That is incredible. And I can just attest to Amanda. She is literally the type that she's like, I want to do these trainings. And she's already created the manual and the workbook, and it's already printed and done. And then she's already started the trainings and they're done. Like, if she wants to do something, she's going to make it happen. And I think that's just a testament to not only your higher IQ, but also dealing with some kind of a disability like that, where you're like, I'm going to compensate for that with these other areas, where other people who may not have to deal with that may be a little bit more like, I want to say lazy, but just kind of like, yeah, I really should. And I'm going to go binge watch something, right? I love that it makes you hungry and makes you helpful. You're helping other people be able to move beyond this and say, you know what? There's no reason for this. We can actually take care of this. This is something that can be resolved. I love it. For those that are listening, either as parents or educators, and they want to know how they can be a part of these trainings, how they can actually help put these interventions into their families' lives, how can they reach you?
Yeah, break the mold, dyslexia.com. That is where you can reach me. That will take you to my website. On my website, you can join my newsletter if you would like it, where I am putting out monthly. You're going to get little inside scoops and things that you can do to help your student. It also, there's a link to my private tutoring, because I do realize that sometimes you do need outside sources to help. Sometimes teaching our own is not the best. So there's also that one out there as well. My links to my trainings are, everything is accessible from my website.
Fantastic. That's breakthemolddyslexia.com. And I love it. You are breaking the mold. You are changing the conversation, and you are taking something that can be such a simple, in essence, resolve and resolution. You are making it accessible to so many people and changing lives. That's what I love. And that's what we do on this Disciple Thought Leader series. We help women take their passion and then just adjust it by a few degrees to do it for him, so that they're doing what they do to make a higher impact and a greater impact for good. And that's what you're doing. I absolutely love it. Amanda, it's been a joy today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And as always, if you want to find out more from these Disciple Thought Leader women, check out the series. We have several in here that are just fantastic, and all different varieties and backgrounds and passions that they're pursuing and doing it for him, that keeps it in that elevated state to make a bigger and better difference. And as always, if you love these podcasts, go below and rate, review, and subscribe. If you want more about finding your purpose, being able to be an influential writer, speaker, and media personality, and becoming a disciple thought leader, check out ConnieSokol.com. It's got all my information on retreats, on our leadership circle, and all the scoops on my books and courses and everything you need, because we are here to help you move forward to take the next step in living your purposeful, organized, and joyful life.